Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we plunge into your sources, articles, research notes to really pull out those crucial insights, giving you that shortcut to being truly well-informed. Today, we're tackling a question that feels, well, more vital than ever, doesn't it? In our increasingly secular scientific world, what role can the concept of God or the divine still meaningfully play? We're diving deep into a stack of really thought-provoking material, and a central thread here is Karen Armstrong's The Case for God. She argues, quite powerfully, I think, that modern society has in many ways sort of forgotten what God originally meant.
Right. It wasn't about belief in the way we think of it now.
Exactly. She says true faith was always intended to be a practical, compassionate, and deeply transformative practice, not just a collection of beliefs you could, verify like a science experiment.
It's an absolutely pivotal question, and Armstrong's work really gives us a critical lens here. She observes that many people get little help from their clergy, who may not have had an advanced theological training, and whose worldview may still be bounded by the modern God. And that highlights a significant challenge, doesn't it?
It really does.
If religious leaders themselves are maybe operating within this constrained understanding, it becomes incredibly difficult for them to guide seekers through the complexities of, well, contemporary spirituality.
Right.
Modern theology, she suggests, isn't always easy reading.
Yeah.
It's complex stuff, and that itself becomes a barrier to understanding faith as this lived practice she talks about.
Bounded by the modern God, that phrase just really makes you pause, doesn't it?
It does.
It points to this profound shift, almost a shrinking, maybe, in how we perceive the divine. Instead of this vast, ungraspable mystery, it's become something we try to, put under a microscope.
Yeah, like it has to fit our neat little boxes.
And Armstrong doesn't shy away from the consequences of this narrowed view. She notes that our world is already dangerously polarized, and we do not need another divisive ideology. She starkly warns that the atheist assault is likely to drive the fundamentalists to even greater commitment to creationism, and their contemptuous dismissal of Islam is it's a stark reminder. When we reduce faith to these rigid, provable beliefs, we often just create deeper divisions, right? Pushing people into extreme corners and losing sight of faith's practical, unifying, transformative potential. It stops being a path to connection and becomes more like a battleground of ideas.
And what's truly illuminating here, I think, is how Armstrong's observation about this polarization and the struggle with the modern God, it immediately sets the stage for our broader exploration today.
Right.
It forces us to ask, okay, if this traditional, often intellectualized or literalized understanding of God is struggling, what are the other pathways? Pathways to meaning, transcendence, that sense of connection that exists beyond rigid dogma. How have different traditions, philosophies, even everyday practices historically grappled with these fundamental human needs? And how do they continue to grapple?
And what can we learn?
Crucially, yeah. What can we learn from them when we view faith not just as some static belief system, but as an active, lived experience that actually reshapes us?
Exactly. So our mission today is really to embark on this wide-ranging exploration, unpacking these diverse perspectives. We want to move beyond those rigid definitions of God and spirituality to truly understand how different forms of faith or spiritual engagement manifest. It's not just about what you believe in a creedal sense, ticking boxes, but how does it become a living, breathing, transformative practice?
Right, the how.
Yeah, the how. We'll be connecting the dots between ancient wisdom and modern thought, showing how so many different paths converge on similar human needs and experiences, all centered on this idea of faith as a profound, personal, and, profoundly practical journey. Okay, let's really dig into this idea of a worldview bounded by the modern God that Karen Armstrong talks about. What are the specific limitations, or maybe the implicit assumptions, built into this modern God concept, and what does that imply about our current relationship with spirituality?
Well, the modern God, in Armstrong's framing, and others like Charles Taylor explore this too, it's often perceived through a lens that emerged largely from the Enlightenment and the rise of scientific rationalism.
Okay.
It's a God that's expected to be a distinct external entity, almost like a superhuman figure, right?
Yeah.
Subject to the same empirical scrutiny as any other object in the observable universe.
So we ask things like...
Exactly. We ask, can God be proven? Does God intervene? Why does God allow suffering? But this approach, Armstrong argues, fundamentally misunderstands the symbolic and experiential nature of the divine in so many historical and spiritual traditions.
It's like asking the wrong questions.
Precisely. Carl Trueman, When he's commenting on Charles Taylor's huge work, A Secular Age, he articulates this societal shift really well. He poses Taylor's central question, why it was almost impossible not to believe in God in 1500.
Yeah.
And yet an easy, perhaps even the easiest option in 2000. Now, this isn't just a philosophical query.
Right.
It reflects a profound cultural transformation.
Right. The whole backdrop changed.
The very default setting of belief has flipped.
Yeah.
So the modern God struggles because it's been forced into this philosophical box it was never really designed to fit into.
That's a critical distinction. It sounds like we've tried to put God on a laboratory bench, expecting to measure or quantify the divine.
That's a good way to put it.
And if the divine can't be empirically verified in that way, then for many, it just ceases to be real. So this isn't just a personal struggle of belief then, it's a massive societal, cultural one.
Absolutely.
And if, as Armstrong suggests, modern theology is not always easy reading, and maybe clergy lack the advanced training to articulate a more nuanced historical understanding of the divine, then you've got this serious disconnect.
A huge disconnect.
So how does that manifest practically for people genuinely seeking meaning today? Are they just abandoning faith, or are they finding different ways, maybe less structured ways, outside traditional institutions?
Well, the practical consequences are immense, and Armstrong is really clear on this. When traditional institutions present a modern God that feels irrelevant or, frankly, intellectually untenable to contemporary seekers, people often find themselves spiritually adrift.
Yeah, I can see that.
They either disengage from organized religion entirely, or they might become drawn to more fundamentalist interpretations that offer, simple, unshakable answers because the complexity feels overwhelming.
Right, the certainty is appealing.
Or they gravitate towards those somewhat shallow and undemanding spiritual options that Taylor mentions. But Taylor provides an interesting counterpoint here. He reminds us not to forget the spiritual costs of forced conformity in the past.
Ah, right. Hypocrisy, spiritual stultification.
Exactly, in a revolt against the gospel. He even suggests we might be wiser to stick with the present dispensation, despite the risks.
So freedom is better, even if it's messy.
That's the implication. The freedom of our secular age, though challenging in its openness, might ultimately be preferable to a society where belief is enforced, even if it leaves many struggling. The crucial task then becomes navigating this freedom without succumbing to, theological fads or losing a sense of genuine depth. It's about rediscovering the active, lived experience of faith that Armstrong champions.
Okay, so in this new secular landscape, science obviously plays an absolutely foundational role in shaping how we understand reality. You think of someone like Richard Dawkins, right? In The Blind Watchmaker, he aims to persuade readers that the Darwinian worldview happens to be true.
A very strong claim.
And he says it's the only known theory that could, in principle, solve the mystery of our existence. That's a profoundly assertive claim, and it inherently butts up against traditional religious explanations, which often posit a designer or a first cause.
Right.
For Dawkins, it seems this scientific worldview offers such a complete, elegant picture that it just leaves no logical room for a divine architect.
Indeed, Dawkins posits a universe without design, which is a direct, really a frontal challenge to creationist views and any notion of a purposeful divine intelligence. His work, including The Sophist Gene, provides a powerful framework for scientific atheism, explaining complex phenomena through natural selection, materialistic principles. However, what's truly fascinating, and often gets overlooked in the popular back and forth, is a potential tension within his own arguments. Well, critiques, for example, point out that Dawkins talking about memes is like believers talking about God, an invisible, unverifiable postulate.
That's interesting. Memes as unverifiable postulates.
It raises a critical question for us, doesn't it? Where do we, as informed individuals, draw the line between a robust scientific explanation and what some might call an unverifiable postulate? Whether that's a cultural unit like a meme or a spiritual concept like God.
Yeah, where's that line?
It points to the inherent limitations, perhaps, of purely empirical science when it tries to explain all aspects of human experience, especially the subjective stuff, the search for ultimate meaning.
Yeah.
It's an intriguing parallel that even within a staunchly scientific framework, you can have concepts that serve a powerful explanatory function without being directly observable, which, mirrors how the divine has often been understood historically as a pervasive, underlying explanatory force rather than some physically present being you can touch or measure.
That's a brilliant point. It really highlights the inherent boundaries of purely empirical investigation. If even science sometimes relies on conceptual frameworks that aren't strictly observable, well, that opens the door to other ways of understanding reality, doesn't it?
It certainly seems to.
And that's where someone like William James, in his classic work, The Varieties of Religious Experience, offers such a powerful counterpoint to this purely scientific stance. He argues that the universe is a more many-sided affair than any sect, even the scientific sect, allows for.
I love that quote.
It's a profoundly inclusive assertion, right? It pushes back against any single exclusionary worldview, whether it's dogmatic religion or reductionist scientific materialism.
James's perspective is just foundational to our discussion today, especially when we're thinking about Armstrong's view of faith as practice. He doesn't dismiss science at all. He simply expands the field of what counts as legitimate inquiry.
Okay.
He suggests that the world can be handled according to many systems of ideas, with both science and religion, genuine keys for unlocking the world's treasure house,
Jeez.
to him who can use either of them practically. He sees them as co-eternal, not mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
He even proposes that the world might consist of many interpenetrating spheres of reality.
Interpenetrating spheres. Wow.
Now, this isn't just a philosophical nicety, it's a really powerful epistemological framework. It tells us that what's true or real can be approached and understood through different lenses, and each offers a unique kind of profit or insight.
Profit in terms of understanding.
Or meaning or transformation. For James, the truth of a religious experience, for instance, lies not necessarily in the objective, verifiable existence of its claims,
Right.
but in its practical effects on the individual's life. And this is absolutely key to understanding Armstrong's argument. Faith is practical. It's a key that, when you use it, unlocks a particular kind of treasure meaning, purpose transformation, which science, by its nature, just isn't designed to access.
So it's about utility for human flourishing, not empirical proof.
Exactly. It's about what works for us, what helps us live meaningful lives.
Okay, so if the universe truly is this many-sided affair, as William James suggests, how do other traditions and philosophies articulate these different spheres of reality or ways of conceiving the divine? How do they approach meaning-making beyond the, let's say, rigid, often restrictive definitions we often encounter in that modern God framework?
It's fascinating how many traditions just embrace paradox. Take Conversations with God, for example. It introduces this concept of divine dichotomy.
Divine dichotomy.
Yeah, the idea that two seemingly contradictory truths exist simultaneously in the same place.
Like what?
Well, for instance, the text offers, there is such a thing as good and evil. All there is love.
Whoa. Okay. Both true.
Simultaneously. Or the profound notion that there is only one being, and hence only one soul. And there are many souls in the one being.
Okay, my brain hurts a little.
Chuckles. Right. It's not just a clever turn of phrase, though.
Yeah.
It's a fundamental challenge to our linear either thinking, which is so often defines Western philosophy and theology.
Yeah, we like things neat.
Exactly. This invites a far more expansive, non-dualistic understanding of truth and reality. It suggests that absolute reality might hold paradoxes that our relative human minds struggle to reconcile. Yet these paradoxes are absolutely essential to the fabric of existence and experience. It's a profound shift from demanding a literal, scientifically provable God to understanding the divine as something that encompasses contradiction and multiplicity.
That truly is mind-bending. If Conversations with God suggest these profound dichotomies exist, and even that our concepts of past, present, and future are concepts you have constructed, realities you have invented, in order to create a context within which to frame your present experience, does that imply there's no objective reality? Or is it more about our perception shaping our experience of some underlying, maybe unified truth?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily denying objective reality, I think, but rather suggesting that our experience of it is filtered and constructed through our consciousness.
Okay.
And the implications are enormous. If we are active participants in framing our reality, then our inner state, our beliefs, our focus, they become incredibly powerful tools for shaping our experience.
Which brings us back to practice.
Right, back to Armstrong's idea of faith as practice.
Yeah.
If our internal constructions are so influential, then consciously cultivating a spiritual practice becomes a profound way to create a context for our experience that's more aligned with, say, love or unity or whatever divine quality we seek.
Makes sense.
And you see similar ideas, though, from a different angle in someone like Plotinus. In the Enneads, he explores these profound ideas of unity and multiplicity from a Neoplatonic philosophical perspective.
Right, the Neoplatonists.
He discusses how the soul sees itself as two and as one thing contemplating another, while intellect sees itself as one and both of the two aspects as one. He talks about the one, the ultimate ineffable source of everything,
The source.
and how intellect is everywhere itself, constantly wandering on the plane of truth. This gives us a sense of a singular underlying reality from which everything else emanates and to which all consciousness is intimately connected.
So not a personal God in the usual sense.
Not really, no. The one for Plotinus isn't an anthropomorphic God like in the Abrahamic traditions, but a transcendent source that is also immanent in all things. It reflects this many-sided nature of reality we've been talking about, echoing James and pushing us to understand the divine not as some separate entity, but as the very ground of being itself.
Okay, building on that idea of a many-sided reality that Plotinus explored, Taoism offers a beautifully distinct yet kind of complementary perspective, especially when it comes to understanding ultimate reality not as a personal God, but as this pervasive, indefinable flow. How does the Tao Te Ching describe this fundamental principle? How does it challenge our usual notions of the divine?
The Tao Te Ching describes the great Tao as flowing everywhere, filling everything to the left and to the right. It's the source of all existence, yet it remains fundamentally ungraspable by the intellect.
Ungraspable.
Yeah, and what's truly profound, I think, is the Tao's humility. It's described as eternal, all-encompassing, yet it does not claim lordship over things.
Doesn't claim Lord.
It brings all things to completion without their even knowing it, and nourishes and protects all creatures, yet does not claim lordship over them. Now, for those of us used to a more anthropomorphic or interventionist God, that's a radical shift.
Absolutely. No king on a throne.
Exactly. The Tao isn't a powerful ruler demanding obedience. It's the subtle, inherent order and flow of the cosmos itself. Think of it less like a sculptor actively shaping clay and more like gravity.
Oh, interesting analogy.
It shapes everything, but doesn't command it. This principle isn't about intervention. It's about nourishing and completing all things naturally, which leads to its classification with the most humble. It's a very practical challenge to our human tendency to always seek control and external authority. Instead, it asks us to find wisdom in simply aligning with what is.
Which is so different from the modern God we might expect to intervene or prove itself.
Worlds apart, it's an embracing of the subtle, inherent order of the cosmos, which then becomes an accessible spiritual practice through aligning with it.
So, if the Tao doesn't claim lordship, and it's this humble, pervasive principle, how does one even begin to practice alignment with it? Is it about observing nature? Meditation? And how does that kind of faith translate into our noisy, often chaotic modern lives, which seem anything but humble or flowing?
That's a great question, and it resonates deeply with Robert Pirsig's exploration of quality in Zen and the art of motorcycle maintenance, actually.
Pirsig, yes.
Pirsig's quality serves as an excellent bridge here. He grapples with defining this elusive concept, wondering if mystical ones and metaphysical monadiums are interconvertible. He ultimately concludes that his quality was a metaphysical entity, not a mystic one. Or was it? What was the difference?
Right, the ambiguity.
Its indefinability freed it from the rules of metaphysics. That made it mystic too. He even offers his own take on the Tao Te Ching. The quality that can be defined is not the absolute quality.
So indefinability is key.
The crucial shared element. It means accepting a reality that transcends our intellectual grasp, emphasizing experience and direct apprehension over rigid definition. For Taoism, the practice involves cultivating personal humility, contentment, and cooperative relationships, promoting harmony with nature, handling challenges with flexibility and grace. It's a very practical, embodied spirituality, even valuing long life through exercise and healthy eating.
So it's not about believing in an invisible God.
No, it's about living in harmony with an indefinable principle. Manifesting faith as a way of being in the world, a profoundly practical approach. In our chaotic modern lives, it's about finding those moments of stillness, of accepting what is, and responding with flexibility rather than rigid control, trying to flow with things, not against them.
Moving to another rich tradition, Hinduism. Here, the divine is also understood as both profoundly transcendent and intimately immanent, often in ways that really challenge our dualistic Western thinking. The Bhagavad Gita, for example, speaks of the supreme personality of Godhead and the supersoul accompanying the individual soul in all bodies. For listeners maybe more familiar with the singular external deity, could you help us understand the supersoul? Is it like an individual spark of the divine within each person, or is it more a pervasive universal consciousness residing within all beings? And how does that differ from the individual soul's journey?
That's a crucial distinction, and the Bhagavad Gita offers a really nuanced understanding. The supersoul, or Paramatma, isn't just an individual spark. It's depicted as a localized expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna in the context of the Gita that resides within the heart of every living being, right alongside the individual soul, the Jivatman.
Okay, so they're together.
Yes. The supersoul is the divine witness, the constant companion, guiding and sanctioning the actions of the individual soul. The Gita highlights this idea that one who sees the supersoul accompanying the individual soul in all bodies, and who understands that neither the soul nor the supersoul within the destructible body is ever destroyed, actually sees.
Actually sees reality.
Exactly. This knowledge transcends the material body and its limitations, emphasizing the eternal nature of both the individual soul and its divine companion. It describes a fully conscious and conscious person as one who accepts miseries as mercy of the Lord, and gives credit for happiness to the Lord, dedicating their life in service.
So again, faith as practice, as dedication.
Absolutely. It's a profound shift in consciousness that reinterprets all of life's experiences through a divine lens, leading to a practical dedication to service, where every action becomes an offering.
So it's about cultivating this deep, unwavering connection to the divine presence within, regardless of external circumstances, which then guides one's actions. The Upanishads further elaborate on the path to this union, laying out a very clear, actionable process for self-realization and union with ultimate reality, or Brahman. Can you explain a bit more about what Brahman represents here and how one achieves this union?
Sure. In the Hindu tradition, Brahman is the ultimate reality, the absolute, the supreme existence, consciousness, and bliss, Satchidananda. It's generally understood not as a personal God in the same sense as the Supreme Personality in the Gita, but rather as the impersonal, all-pervading, unchanging reality that underlies all phenomena.
The ground of being again, maybe.
Very much so. And the Upanishads speak of the journey to knowing Brahman, stating, by asceticism one wins truth, through truth one wins mind. By mind the self is one, and having won that, one does not return.
A clear path. Asceticism, truth, mind, self.
It's a profound roadmap, emphasizing that this is an experiential transformative journey, not just intellectual ascent. It speaks of attaining indestructible, measureless, flawless bliss and being freed from those things by which he was filled, overcome, and ridden, ultimately achieving union in the self.
Union in the self.
The path connects knowledge, asceticism, and contemplation as the essential triad for this spiritual realization. This emphasizes that understanding the divine is an active experiential process, a practice, not merely intellectual assent to a doctrine. It's about rigorous self-discipline and inner work to peel back the layers of illusion, Maya, and merge with the underlying truth of existence, recognizing that Atman, the individual self, is Brahman.
Atman is Brahman, the individual is the ultimate.
In essence, yes.
Yeah.
This is far from the modern God that's debated or disproven. It's a call to a deep, personal, and ultimately universal realization achieved through dedicated practice.
Okay, moving from these grand concepts of divine reality, let's bring it down to the individual level. How do people actually live this kind of faith or spiritual path day to day? So many of our sources strongly emphasize an internal journey of self-transformation, suggesting that the true nature of faith really lies in its power to fundamentally reshape the self.
Exactly. And C.S. Lewis, in Mere Christianity, he talks about this real giving up of the self. He states it quite starkly. Until you have given up yourself to him, you will not have a real self. Give up yourself, and you will find your real self. Lose your life, and you will save it.
Lose your life to save it.
Now, this isn't about self-erasure or becoming some kind of spiritual automaton.
Right.
Instead, it's about a radical recentering, shedding the ego-driven, fragmented self to find its authentic expression in alignment with the divine. He even argues that every Christian is to become a little Christ.
Wow, that's a high bar.
It's a profound call to internal transformation, suggesting that true individuality and purpose are found not in self-assertion, but in self-surrender to a higher principle. It challenges the very notion of what it means to be a coherent self in the first place, moving beyond mere belief to an active internal purification.
That's a profound challenge to our often egocentric worldview. And, of course, in Miracles echoes this sentiment of internal transformation, stating that healing is a return to love. It squarely challenges us to let go our grievances against other people because, and this is the kicker, any darkness we let blind us to another's perfection also blinds us to our own.
That's incredibly powerful, isn't it?
Yeah,
It highlights the direct interconnectedness of our inner state and how we perceive others.
totally.
It frames forgiveness not just as some moral obligation, but as a crucial spiritual practice for self-healing, for clearing the internal lens through which we view the world and ourselves.
And the Course drives this point home with a very direct, almost confrontational question, right?
It does. Do you prefer that you be right or happy?
Ouch. That chuckles. Yeah.
It suggests that what it calls a special relationship, those intense, often exclusive bonds we form, is often based not on love, but on guilt.
Guilt.
Yeah, an ego-seductive pull away from God, an idolatry that seeks completion outside of God. This pushes us to critically examine the hidden motivations behind our relationships and attachments.
So are we seeking love or just trying to fill a hole?
Pretty much. Are we truly seeking connection and love, or are we seeking to fulfill egoic needs, to be validated, or maybe to escape our own perceived deficiencies? It makes the everyday interactions in our lives, especially our most intimate ones, a direct and challenging path for engaging with faith as a transformative practice. It demands honesty and a willingness to surrender the ego's demands.
Building on this idea of transcending the self, Buddhism, with its core concept of anatman or non-self, takes this idea of self-transcendence even further. For listeners who might be hearing anatman for the first time, how can we understand non-self in a way that doesn't feel like just denying our individuality? But maybe it's an invitation to a different kind of freedom. How does that impact the search for meaning?
That's a crucial point because non-self often gets misinterpreted as, nihilism or a denial of existence. And atman doesn't mean you don't exist.
Okay, good.
It means there's no fixed, permanent, unchanging, independent self or soul that persists eternally, like some kind of static core. Instead, Buddhism teaches that all things are constantly coming into being and passing away. Everything is impermanent.
Right. Impermanence, Annika.
Exactly. And this impermanence means that a belief in an enduring static soul will only cause suffering.
Dukkha.
Dukkha. Suffering, dissatisfaction, unease, yeah. It's understood as resulting directly from human clinging or desire for permanence, our attachment to the illusion of a distinct, enduring self, and our attachment to things being a certain way.
So letting go of the illusion is the path.
By letting go of this illusion of a separate, fixed self, one can overcome dissatisfaction and reach enlightenment or liberation. The Dhammapada describes one who has banished wrong, is living in calm and dispelling one's own stain, as a Brahman, a person who's achieved spiritual purity, emphasizing non-attachment and freedom from longings.
So the practice isn't about holding on to a self that believes in God.
No, it's about dissolving the self's illusions to achieve a state of peace, clarity, and liberation from suffering. It's a radical redefinition of fulfillment.
That's a powerful and, in a way, liberating reframing of suffering and the self. And for those of us struggling with self-perception in a more contemporary psychological sense, Brené Brown's research on shame seems incredibly relevant here.
Oh, absolutely.
She defines shame as the fear of disconnection, the fear that something we've done or failed to do makes us unworthy of connection. This modern psychological insight just powerfully illuminates the internal battles many face, often without realizing maybe the depth of the spiritual dimension to these feelings of unworthiness.
It's incredibly common, this internal struggle, and it's a profound obstacle to genuine spiritual experience, however you define that. The Four Agreements note something similar, that not being perfect, we reject ourselves, and cannot forgive ourselves for not being what we wish to be.
Right, the self-rejection.
And this internal self-judgment leads to wearing social masks and judging others based on our own image of perfection. Brown's work, mirroring these spiritual insights, encourages us to lean into the discomfort of hard emotions. She notes that most of us engage in behaviors, consciously or not, that help us to numb and take the edge off vulnerability, pain, and discomfort.
Numbing.
So these everyday psychological patterns, shame, self-rejection, they reveal deep-seated spiritual obstacles to genuine connection with self, with others, and ultimately maybe with the divine or ultimate reality. True faith, in this context, becomes the courageous practice of confronting these vulnerabilities, embracing imperfection, and fostering authentic connection rather than numbing or hiding.
The path away from this internal turmoil, then, whether we call it ego, self-rejection, illusion, whatever, it seems to involve a deep, often difficult internal purification. This isn't just about feeling better temporarily, is it? It's about a radical internal cleansing, a process beautifully described in Christian mystical texts like the dark night of the soul.
St. John of the Cross describes this dark night not as a punishment, but as a necessary, often painful process, an intimate purgation and detachment and spiritual concealment from all that is creature in order to attain union with God.
Purgation and detachment.
He depicts the soul becoming wholly spiritual, with its desires and passions purged. It's an emptying out, a stripping away of everything that isn't divine. Similarly, Theologia Germanica, another mystical text, states, "In what measure we put off the creature, in the same measure are we able to put on the Creator."
Put off the creature, put on the Creator.
This requires looking inward to understand his own life, who and what he is, acknowledging one's true nature as distinct from material attachments. These mystical traditions make it abundantly clear that transformation is an active, often arduous practice of letting go, allowing the divine to fill the space left by a thoroughly purged ego. It's an active, ongoing process of refining the self.
And this internal focus on purification is powerfully echoed in Eastern practices too, isn't it? Like the Yoga Sutras, it describes abstract meditation, leading to a state where creative urges disappear, achieved through cultivation of friendliness, compassion, cheerfulness, and non-responsiveness to happiness, distress, virtue, and vices. It sounds like a very systematic approach, a conscious reprogramming of one's inner landscape, moving beyond just reacting to things.
Indeed. The sutras also identify the formation of regions within the mento-emotional energy, basically our mental patterns and habits as arising from the sense of identity which is developed in relation to material nature.
Our identity tied to the material world.
Right. The yogi aims for a kind of disgust, nirvana for these imaginings, cultivating detachment from the mental and emotional patterns tied to material existence. This spiritual progression is sought through perception of spiritual objects that brings steadiness of mind and fusion of the attention into the higher level of reality.
Fusion of attention.
It's a rigorous practice to delink one's identity from the impermanent, achieving a deeper, more stable state of consciousness. It emphasizes direct spiritual perception over mere intellectual belief. It's about practical methods to quiet the mind and transcend the limitations of ordinary consciousness.
This all sounds like incredibly intense, disciplined work. But then you have someone like Pema Chodron, in When Things Fall Apart, offering this wonderfully compassionate and accessible perspective on this internal work that I think many listeners might find relatable.
She has such a gift for that.
She reminds us, to be fully alive, fully human, and completely awake is to be continually thrown out of the nest. To live is to be willing to die over and over again.
Wow, willing to die over and over.
But then she also offers this profoundly comforting thought. Maybe the most important teaching is to lighten up and relax.
Chuckles.
Which brings this gentle wisdom to the often intense spiritual journey. It reminds us that transformation isn't always about striving and struggle, but also about acceptance, resilience, and maybe even a sense of ease with life's inherent impermanence. So far, we've focused heavily on individual transformation, but many traditions powerfully highlight the social and communal dimensions of faith, emphasizing compassion and right relationship with others. This shows that the practice of faith extends far beyond personal piety, right into the very fabric of society and our interconnectedness.
Absolutely crucial. Take Sikhism, for example. Guru Gobind Singh founded the Khalsa order, calling for Sikh men to be willing to die to defend their faith and protect the weak.
A strong call to action.
And the 5Ks, those specific articles of faith like the Kish uncut hair or the Kirpan ceremonial dagger, they become essential elements of the Sikh identity, symbolizing commitment to community, justice, and principle. Their belief in union with God as the soul's final destination is tied to a judging of the soul at the end of each lifetime based on actions.
So faith is deeply embedded in social responsibility.
In the active defense of justice, it embodies a practical, compassionate love that's manifest in action, not just internal contemplation.
That's a powerful call to action and social responsibility, where personal faith is just inextricably linked to communal protection and ethical living. The Philokalia, that collection of Eastern Orthodox spiritual texts, directly links love for God with action towards others. It states, "The actualization and proof of perfect love for God is a genuine and willing attitude of goodwill towards one's neighbor."
It's a very direct equation, isn't it? Between your inner spiritual state and your outer ethical behavior. It leaves no room for hypocrisy.
None at all.
And it's a recurring theme across so many traditions. As St. John writes in the New Testament, "For he who does not love his brother whom he has seen cannot love God whom he has not seen." It's blunt.
Can't get much clearer than that.
And the Way of the Pilgrim reinforces this, noting that praying for one another sustains the unity of Christian love that is commanded by God. It goes further, encouraging a sincere Christian relationship as the source of power in such prayers. This profoundly elevates interpersonal relationships, especially those characterized by genuine care, empathy, prayer, to a direct expression and cultivation of faith. Our connections to one another become the very arena where divine love is manifested and strengthened.
And this emphasis on connection is echoed so strongly by a Course in Miracles, too. You who hold your brother's hand also hold mine. For when you joined each other, you were not alone.
Beautiful.
It describes the relationship as now a temple of healing, a place where all the weary ones can come and rest. This is just a beautiful way to elevate our everyday interactions to sacred spaces of healing and mutual support, transforming them into a profound spiritual practice. It suggests that finding God is often found between us in that connection.
And Eric Fromm, in The Art of Loving, takes this idea maybe even further. He asserts that love is a character trait.
A character trait, not just an emotion.
Exactly. And it must necessarily exist in one's relationship, not only with one's family and friends, but toward those with whom one is in contact through one's work, business, profession. He states there's no division of labor between love for one's own and love for strangers.
Wow.
With the condition for the existence of the former is the existence of the latter.
So you can't truly love your family unless you also cultivate love for strangers.
That's Fromm's argument. It's a truly profound call for a universal, pervasive love that extends beyond our immediate circles of affection and affinity. It makes the practice of faith synonymous with how we relate to everyone. It challenges us to cultivate a comprehensive attitude of love, not just selective affection.
That's a significant challenge to our natural tendencies, isn't it? To favor those closest to us. It forces us to extend our compassion far beyond our immediate circles. The Quran also strongly emphasizes community and moral action, describing Muslims as the best community ever brought forth among mankind, commanding virtue and forbidding vice, and believing in God. This isn't just a statement of identity, is it? It sounds like a blueprint for societal engagement.
Absolutely. It creates a powerful framework for a socially responsible faith. Doing good deeds isn't just about individual piety. It benefits oneself and actively contributes to a virtuous society.
Right.
And James Baldwin, in The Fire Next Time, grapples with this idea with such searing honesty. He questions, what was the point, the purpose of my salvation if it did not permit me to behave with love toward others, no matter how they behave toward me?
Such a powerful question.
He also makes that sharp observation, noting how the vision people hold of the world to come is but a reflection of the world in which they live.
Ouch. That hits hard.
Baldwin's challenge highlights how absolutely critical it is for faith to translate into real-world, compassionate action, rather than being confined to abstract beliefs, or worse, serving to justify existing societal biases and injustices. It's a stark reminder that our conception of the divine and the afterlife often reveals more about our earthly experiences and prejudices than it does about any transcendent truth.
That's a very uncomfortable but necessary truth. It suggests our spiritual aspirations are often deeply shaped, maybe even limited, by our earthly experiences and biases. Joseph Campbell notes that Jung believed the soul cannot exist in peace until it finds its other, and the other is always a you. This isn't just about romantic love, is it? It sounds like a fundamental human need for connection, a longing that in many ways mirrors the deeper search for the divine.
Indeed, Campbell elaborates on this beautifully. He adds that the images of myth are reflections of the spiritual potentialities of every one of us. Through contemplating these, we evoke their powers in our own lives.
Evoke their powers.
This connects individual experience with universal patterns of meaning, emphasizing spontaneous compassion as a key aspect of love. It argues that engaging with these archetypal stories, whether from ancient myths or modern narratives, is a practical way to activate our own inner spiritual resources and connect to a larger shared human experience of the divine, fostering that necessary connection to the other. And bringing this back to leadership for a moment, Dallas Willard also stresses the importance of leaders being committed to pursuing common flourishing than personal power and privilege. He suggests that Christian leaders and spokespersons have such knowledge at their disposal and are required to bring it to bear for the blessing of both communities and nations.
So bringing spiritual insight into the public square for the common good.
Exactly. It brings the practical application of faith right into public life, emphasizing ethical leadership and service as a profound spiritual mandate, directly counteracting self-interest.
Okay, so for many people, the spiritual journey isn't found just in grand gestures or deep theological debates or even specific communal action, but it's deeply embedded in the rhythm of daily life. How can we find grace and meaning in the seemingly ordinary? How do we transform mundane tasks into spiritual practice?
That's where faith truly becomes embodied and accessible to everyone, I think. It transcends formal religious structures. Tamar Adler's An Everlasting Meal offers just a beautiful perspective on cooking with economy and grace.
I love that book.
She talks about pots of beans having an admirable long-term perspective on eating, getting better over a few days sitting. It's a metaphor, really, isn't it? For patience, sustainability, and appreciation of simple, sustained nourishment.
Yes.
The very act of preparing food becomes a practical, mindful engagement with life, finding the sacred in the mundane act of feeding oneself and others. It's about being present and intentional, even just in the kitchen.
I absolutely love that idea of food as a spiritual practice. It's so relatable. And she gives such practical advice, like serving a little bowl of something cool and raw, or one vibrant, intense flavored thing, just to elevate the everyday meal from mere sustenance to an aesthetic and mindful experience. And the rice principle for risotto, using minimal ingredients to create elegance and depth of flavor that speaks volumes about finding richness in simplicity. It's about intentionality and appreciating the essence, which feels like a powerful form of grace in daily living.
And this approach, finding depth and contentment in basic acts, is remarkably pervasive. Marie Kondo's The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up offers a similar philosophy, but applied to our possessions.
Ah, the KonMari method.
She encourages us to get rid of anything that doesn't touch your heart. Now, this isn't just about decluttering your physical space, though that's part of it.
Right, it's deep.
It's a mindful practice of discerning what brings joy and meaning into your physical environment, and by extension, into your inner life. It's a very tangible way of cultivating intentionality and making choices that resonate with your deeper values, reflecting an inner state.
So it's about consciously choosing what brings joy and meaning into our physical space. And Kondo claims that your real life begins after putting your house in order.
Chuckles. A bold claim.
And that the moment you picked up this book with the intention of tidying, you took the first step towards gaining happiness to shine. She positions a seemingly mundane task as this powerful catalyst for personal transformation and well-being, suggesting our external environment is a direct reflection of our internal state. It feels like a very practical expression of faith in action, where the sacred is found right there in the everyday.
Precisely. These seemingly mundane acts become profound opportunities for mindfulness and intentional living. Jon Kabat-Zinn, in Wherever You Go, There You Are, emphasizes taking your seat in meditation with a definite sense, shifting from doing to being.
Doing to being.
Even a minute of mindfulness, he argues, is truly wonderful, a remembrance of the value of stopping in our constantly rushing world. This illustrates that the practice of faith doesn't always require grand rituals or intense asceticism. It can be found in simple, consistent moments of presence and conscious awareness.
It's just bringing an attentive heart to whatever you're doing.
Exactly.
And the Tao of Pooh reinforces this idea of simplicity and presence with such delightful humor, doesn't it? Noting that when we discard arrogance, complexity, and a few other things that get in the way, sooner or later you will discover that simple, childlike, and mysterious secret known to those of the uncarved block. Life is fun.
Laughs.
Gotta love Pooh.
This delightful perspective suggests that finding meaning can be less about intellectual striving and more about unlearning, simplifying, and returning to a natural state of being. The book playfully but profoundly cautions against a mind that tries too hard, one that thinks too much, leading to being tense, awkward, and confused. It suggests that wisdom and contentment don't come from knowledge and cleverness, but from a different, more intuitive, less effortful approach to life.
Which brings us full circle, really.
It really does. Back to Karen Armstrong's initial point about moving beyond a modern God bounded by intellectual systematization and embracing a faith that is experiential, practical, and lived. It's about finding that natural, effortless alignment with a Tao or quality or whatever you call it that brings true joy and peace.
We've journeyed through a remarkable and incredibly rich landscape today, from Karen Armstrong's critical observations on the modern God and her argument for faith as this necessary practical art,
Hmm.
to the subtle wisdom of Taoism, the profound self-transformation demanded by Christian mystics, the communal ethics of Sikhism, and even those spiritual lessons hidden in cooking and tidying. It's been an expansive dive into the many ways humanity grapples with meaning.
What's truly striking, really fascinating here, is that across these vastly diverse perspectives, whether they're ancient or modern, Eastern or Western, the idea of faith or engaging with the divine consistently manifests less as a rigid set of scientifically verifiable beliefs,
Right.
and far more as a dynamic, practical, compassionate, and deeply transformative practice. It's not about intellectual assent to dogma. It's a continuous, active process of self-discovery, connection to something larger, and living with profound intentionality, far beyond what a purely intellectualized understanding of God could ever really offer.
Indeed. We've seen that the challenges of a secular age don't necessarily negate the spiritual impulse. Rather, they invite us, maybe even push us, to look beyond conventional understandings, to embrace that many-sided nature of reality that William James spoke of so eloquently.
Mhm.
It's about finding profound truth even in apparent contradictions, like the divine dichotomy. Ultimately, it feels like an active, engaged, and deeply personal quest for meaning that defines who we are and how we relate to the world around us.
Whether it's through the rigorous self-examination of Eastern philosophy or the active, sometimes revolutionary compassion of Abrahamic faiths, or maybe the quiet mindfulness cultivated in seemingly mundane, everyday tasks, that fundamental human call to find meaning and purpose remains constant and compelling.
It really does.
Which raises, I think, an important question for you, our listener, to maybe ponder. In your own life, what practices, big or small, help you connect with a deeper sense of meaning and foster genuine transformation? How do you move beyond mere belief to active, embodied engagement with what you consider sacred?
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the ongoing and ever-evolving search for meaning in our complex world. We hope this exploration has given you some fresh perspectives and perhaps even ignited a spark for your own journey of practical faith and self-discovery.